Welcome to round 3 of the FIDE Olympiads in Budapest 2024. And in this round, we are going to feature a very interesting game between none other than the GOAT himself. I think we've gotten to the point in the tournament where every country is beginning to bring their best. India had Pragnananda, Gukesh, Vidit, what's his name, Arjun Erigaisi on their team today. The USA had Fabiano Caruana, Wesley So. They still have Ray Robson on board 4 and Levon Aronian. So it looks like every country is beginning to bring the biggest dogs that they have. Even Ding Liren, the world champion, is playing for China in round 3 this time around. So we have a game between Magnus Carlsen and Roberto Garcia from Norway and from Colombia, of course. So it's Norway versus Colombia, round 3, board 1, and let's go. Garcia Roberto opened with e4 and Magnus played c5. So we are going to have a Sicilian defense. Are we going to get a knight off? Everything here is standard moves. And yes, we get a form of the knight off, except that we don't have the knight on f6 just yet. Here, Roberto decides to play c4. If some of you may know that I've been trying to master the knight off defense, but I've actually never faced this Maroczy bind kind of structure before, but I'm sure Magnus has. Of course, we transpose into the knight of the can variation of the knight of basically. Queen develops and bishop develops. All of this is known theory. There are lots of games in the database where these positions have been reached many times. Garcia castles here. Magnus fiancitos his bishop. Garcia plays f3. Magnus develops the knight. Knight takes knight. Now, there's only one game in the database where this position was reached and knight captured on this square, bishop captures. And in that game in the database, bishop e3 was played and white would go on to win that game. Even if bishop e3 was not actually the best move here is the move that Roberto Garcia is going to play, which is queen d3. But in that game, the white player, and those are like probably, I don't know, 2,000 something rated players. They are not big players by any means. But in this game, Roberto decides to play queen d3, and queen d3 is by far the best move in the position. Magnus responded correctly, of course, by going h5. Magnus goes h5 here, and now Roberto develops his bishop to e3 here. So it's what was this move again? This was move queen d3 was move 11, and it's so at move 11 we have a completely new game. So this is the first start of a fresh position here for these two players, and then we get h5 and bishop e3 here. Magnus Carlsen decides to go bishop d5, basically saying, okay, how are you going to defend that pawn? And Garcia defends it with f4. Threatening a fork, of course. So Magnus moved the knight over to g4 here. Garcia kept pushing the pawn, pushes it all the way to e5 here, attacks the bishop, bishop drops back, and he fiancitos his dark square bishop to, is this a fiancito? He moved the dark square bishop to the d4 square. Magnus goes d6, and the trade happens on this square. Now, this pawn is kind of hanging, but Garcia did not even bother defending the pawn. He traded bishops first and then castles here because now the pawn is sufficiently defended. Up to this point, the game had been pretty balanced. I was like, I don't even know if Magnus is going to win this game. But what you notice is Garcia has actually left that pawn. It's just a pawn. And he moved his knight without trying. He didn't try to defend the pawn. And Magnus grabs the pawn. He says, okay, thank you for the pawn. I'm going to take it and I'm going to keep it. The bishop is hanging. The bishop is hanging. But Garcia decides to defend his bishop. He's not interested in trading bishops just yet. And Magnus retreats his bishop. And from here, it began to look interesting. When I was watching the game without the evaluation myself, I was thinking that, wait, can Garcia not somehow take that pawn, right? I was thinking he could just grab the pawn, but apparently that's not the best move in the position. And well, that's why I'm not the one playing the games. I'm just reviewing the games. Garcia decides to go b3 first to kick away the queen. The queen moved. Absolute best move, queen c5. And Garcia attacks the queen again, and the queen drops to b4. Now, to my own untrained eye, at least, I was thinking that these moves were okay moves, right? I'm thinking, what could be wrong here? But when you look at the evaluation is getting worse and worse, slowly but surely for white here. So far, Magnus already accumulated a plus 1.1 advantage in this position. Material is equal. Magnus is up a pawn. But it doesn't look like anything until it begins to look like something. Magnus retreats his knight. Great move here to h6. This knight can reroute itself to several positions later on. The queen is attacked again. Magnus grabs yet another pawn. So what you see, somehow Magnus' opponent keeps inviting him to take the pawns. And for me, I'm thinking, wait, if he grabs the pawn, is there like some discovery? Is there some tactic where you're going to win the queen? I could not see what the big deal was here. And he went with the rook, of course. Magnus' opponent plays rook d7 here, attacking the bishop. Magnus did not move the bishop. Instead, he defends the bishop with the knight. Computer wanted him to play bishop b4 here. Just take the bishop out, trade it off or something like that. But Magnus defends it like this, and his opponent doubles rook on the d file. Magnus immediately challenges the rooks and grabs yet another pawn. Oops, sorry about that. Sorry about that. Okay, Magnus immediately offers the rook trade, puts his knight on the corner of the board, and grabs another pawn. So all of a sudden, Magnus is up 3 pawns here. I think if I was playing, I would just resign already. How can Magnus be up 3 pawns against you? His opponent kept chasing down the queen. Magnus moved, and now Magnus trades the rooks and offers another rook trade. His opponent refused the rook trade, and this is going to mark the beginning of disaster on the board. Magnus captures. H takes g4 here. His opponent captures back. H takes g4, and Magnus retreated the knight, saying, okay, who is going to defend that pawn? His opponent pushed it. Roberto pushed the pawn. Magnus goes check. And from here, it is, I don't see the mate, but it almost appears as though there is a first mate in the position. His opponent moved the king. Magnus goes check with the queen here. And it looks like this king is getting mated. Looks like this king is getting mated somehow. I don't know why he did not trade. I don't know why he's not capturing anything. I don't know why he's not blocking. Okay, here he blocks with the queen, but Magnus is not interested in taking the queen. He goes check again. The king goes up. Check with the knight. Now the queen captures the knight with an attack on the rook, but it's not a free piece. Magnus goes check. Now it's first mate in 3. You can pause the video here. Can you find the mate in 3? I think this is a very easy one here. Can you find mate in 3 in this position? I'll give you 1 second. Okay. The king goes up. Check. It's mate in 2. King down. And Magnus checkmates the black king in the corner. Or the white king, rather, at the bottom of the board here. And with this, Magnus plays his very first game in the 2024 FIDE Olympiads, and of course he wins. We expect him to win. But this is the first time I am seeing this variation of the Sicilian. Well, not necessarily this variation. This is the first time I'm seeing the Sicilian like this. Like this Maroczy-bind structure with the fianchettoed bishop and bishop coming to e3 here in that particular move order. So it's a good learning experience for me, and I hope you've also learned something. Continue enjoying the Olympiads. If you see any interesting games, if you see any upsets that I did not find, any lower rated player crushing some big dog, let me know. I would like to take a look at those games. Those are the best kind of games. And if you're new to the channel, please click the like button. When you like the video, you help us get it recommended to other people as well. And subscribe to help us grow the channel. Until next time, I will see you all in the very next game out of the Olympiad. Okay? Bye-bye.